Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is July 5th, 2018. Happy belated July 4th to all my American friends out there. And we'll jump right into the call this week. We've got a really exciting call. I think some great demos coming up. But first, for those of you that might be new to the call or just finding out about the invite, as we've just updated the invite for the new Microsoft fiscal year starting here in July. These calls are part of the larger SharePoint Patterns and Practices program, and we started these special interest groups so we could have a bit of a focus on certain areas that we couldn't just get to. Our monthly calls were just getting too big, and we had too many topics we wanted to cover with client-side development, PowerShell, the CSOM development, now the intranet starter kit, and so many other topics. So we started these special interest groups as a way to provide a little bit more focus around these areas of interest. And in the case of this call, this is very much focused on SharePoint Framework and JavaScript client-side development patterns around SharePoint. So whether you're doing SharePoint Framework, whether you're doing just client-side development through other means inside SharePoint, we try and cover that as well. And we also talk about the PnP JS libraries, which have been developed as part of the PnP Patterns and Practices program to help folks with their client-side development in the same manner that we developed the managed code, CSOM, and other components, PowerShell as well, to help folks with those areas. We have the PnP JS libraries to hopefully provide the same kind of help for this client-side development work as well. Two links down there at the bottom to get started. SPFx-Community will take you to the Microsoft Tech Community, Tech Community area specific to SharePoint, and that is a great place to ask sort of general development questions. How would I architect an application? These sorts of questions, and you get a lot of great feedback and great response from folks out there in the community. Just do remember when you're joining the call, please join on mute. It helps us out with the recording. And then the second link there, spdev-docs, will take you to all the Microsoft SharePoint developer documentation. So that is all the stuff for SharePoint Framework. If you're new to SharePoint Framework and looking to get started there's some excellent tutorials and things around that. Excuse me. But as well, the documentation for the managed code is all moving there if it hasn't gotten there completely already, and development for provider-hosted add-ins as well as all the documentation for that will be at that link as well. So do please check out the documentation there. I'm very excited to start getting that centralized and into one spot to hopefully make things a little bit easier to find for folks. So what are we going to talk about today? We have, as always, the engineering update for SharePoint Framework. We have an update on the PnP JS client libraries, an update on the Office 365 CLI, an SPFx Reusable Controls update, and then, like I said, two great demos, one from Andrew and then one from Frank, the first being SystemUpdate flow for list items with the SharePoint Framework. So that's a very cool way to get your items updated and see how that works. And then Frank's got one on building web parts with configurable templates. So again, another very exciting demo and something to check out. So very excited to see those here later in the call. And then Q&A at the end. We should have time for that at the end of this call with just the two demos. So if you'd like to participate in these calls, great ways to do that are to demo either something using the @PnP JavaScript libraries, demo something using the Office 365 CLI, and demo, of course, something using SharePoint Framework. Or all of those things wrapped together always makes a great demo. Excuse me, a little bit of a summer cold for me. I've said a few times now, I feel like the community demos are one of the more valuable parts of these calls, because I know I learn a lot from what folks are doing, and I hope all of you are as well. So if you're doing something cool in any of these client-side development areas, please do reach out. We will get you on an upcoming agenda for a call. It might not necessarily be the immediate next call, but we will get you set up and on the agenda for an upcoming call. So just reach out. Very happy to have folks demo that's what they're working on the calls. Other ways to get involved, of course, you can contribute on GitHub. And in contributing on GitHub, we always welcome, of course, pull requests. Pull requests can fix bugs, can add new features. But as well, I wanted to highlight pull requests can, of course, also update documentation or help us create new documentation. We do often get comments that we should have documentation that covers specific scenarios or specific areas. And while I absolutely agree, it's really just a matter of time for those of us on the core team and trying to get to all the things. So if you have a few moments and want to help out, contributing on GitHub is a great way to do that. Contributing as well, if you do find bugs, issues, have questions, report those as well on GitHub so we can look to get those resolved, get you sorted out and working again. And then finally, the sort of other way to provide feedback to us is just providing feedback. So that was or opportunity to, I don't know, ignore how I just said all that. But we always look forward to the feedback we get from those of you out there in the community. It really drives the work we do in the Patterns and Practices program, whether it's enhancing the code we're writing, fixing bugs there with that feedback, enhancing what we do on these calls, and as well provides us what to do moving forward. So it gives us ideas on where to go, where to take the libraries, where to take new samples, and how to improve our documentation and those sorts of things. Yeah, ignore what I said there. A little verbal hiccup on my part, but very happy to turn it over to somebody that never has a verbal hiccup. Vesa is going to give us our SharePoint Framework update from engineering. So Vesa, if you're ready to take it away.
There's no verbal hiccups, they're all planned. So that's the difference.
They're just verbal opportunities.
Exactly. Anyway, so let's move into the SharePoint Framework. So I have a few slides related on SharePoint Framework, a few typical slides obviously here as well, but a few new stuff as well, which we haven't actually talked about in the past. So let's go this through. First of all, some of you and the people in this call, you actually have found your ways to the new invites. And like Patrick said, we've renewed these invites because the fiscal year changed and we needed to renew because the old invites were expiring. At the same time, we did change some of the invite formats. So like Leo put it in the Ion window, he was unable to join directly from Skype anymore, and that's because it's now an AKMS link. The reason why it's an AKMS link is that we are able to then redirect that AKMS link anywhere we want. So potentially in the future, if we move away from Skype to an alternative technology, we could actually do that without then impacting the invites, and that's what we're trying to do with this. I think last time, was it in June, monthly community call, we hit 230 attendees already, and Skype has a limit of 250. And now that we renewed our invites, obviously the numbers are slightly down after that, but they will come back up in the autumn as well. So we've seen this quite a few times. Quite a few years we've been doing this, so we know how this works. Now, a few things. By the way, I have to say on the Kraken's comment on the Teams, whenever Teams will support broadcasting, which is apparently in pipeline in the roadmap, then we'll probably move to Teams broadcasting as long as we can do screen sharing. Right now in Skype broadcasting, screen sharing is not supported. That's the reason why we can't move there. Anyway, moving on actual topics. So obviously, reminder on the documentation, we had 860,000 views in the docs.microsoft.com, and this is the new location, which was actually replacing MSDN. MSDN should be already shut down. I haven't actually checked how the URLs of MSDN are working right now within the past few days, but it is going to be shut down if it's still working for some areas. There should be redirections on all of the old content, but I haven't actually double checked that. But docs.microsoft.com/SharePoint or AKMS SPDev Docs is the right location to get access on things. Now, other stuff running into the issues, just a reminder on this one for those who haven't actually seen this. For a lot of you at some point, well, a lot of customers and partners has complained Microsoft that, well, if I have a development-oriented issue and I call the SharePoint support or open a support ticket, they will actually close the ticket and say, well, we don't know how to help you, or they will format that in a slightly different way. The challenge for them is that they do not actually have the expertise to help you. So we now agree with our support that we, from an engineering side, we will try to help as much as possible using our issue list. If you go SP DevDocs GitHub repository and open an issue there, we'll try to help you on the questions over there. Now, we are slightly struggling on keeping up to date on all of the issues which are coming in, but we've been able to already address quite a few critical issues or important issues which you reported for us, and then we're able to jump on the actual issue itself. But let's keep on continuing using this, and we're trying to figure out the internal process of keeping up to date on what's actually coming in on here. I do have a pretty big role personally in here, but I would try to figure out how do we scale as well, because I'm not always available for GitHub work. And obviously you can always send a dear Vesa email. Note that that's a bad joke. Please do not send me an email because my inbox doesn't scale. That's really the realities of life. Thank you, Vincent, for that suggestion. Now, new stuff. So some updated stats. These are not actually showing the exact numbers because we do not disclose the exact numbers yet, but it shows the growth of SharePoint Framework. So this is how much third-party customizations built using SharePoint Framework are being used in SharePoint Online. It starts from September 2017 and it ends on actually yesterday, or from actually it is yesterday or day before yesterday, and you can actually see the growth of adoption per user and per tenant, and the per tenant is growing faster. It's a kind of a cumulative growth right now because we're seeing more and more developer tenants starting to use SharePoint Framework, so people are really looking into using SharePoint Framework for web parts and extensions. And if you're wondering, is it a worthwhile of an investment? Absolutely it is. We're not going to replace SharePoint Framework because we're building SharePoint Online and SharePoint 2019 using SharePoint Framework in engineering. So it is a pretty safe bet. So not like the SharePoint add-ins was something which engineering didn't actually use on the day-to-day development. So it's a slightly different ballgame. SharePoint add-ins absolutely supported as well and will be until who knows when. There was an interesting discussion on that one in Twitter yesterday, but let's not actually confuse people. Some updates on the roadmap. Not really that much actually updated from the previous 2 weeks ago. So we're looking into having 1.6 version out in the end of July, or it might be early August. And this is going to then have few capabilities moving into the GA release. And it should have also, well, it will have a global deployment of SharePoint Framework extensions. It will be enabled on the tenants, support for React 16, preview of Socket.io, and SharePoint 2019 support is planned to get there. SharePoint Framework 1.7 is then planned to go live on Ignite, which is in end of September. So we kind of will have 2 of releases before Ignite. And in Ignite release, we're looking into having then more Microsoft Teams integration, which I demonstrated already in Build and also in SharePoint Conference during the spring. We know that there's a high demand for that, but we also don't want to start to preview without a proper tooling and making sure that everything works. So it is planned to now go live to preview in Ignite timeframe. Now on SharePoint 2019, this is now a new slide, and I do understand that people will probably take a screenshot of this one because we haven't actually talked about the SharePoint 2019 and dev support and dev platform support in any of our calls. I will keep this also in the next monthly community call, which is on next Tuesday. But on SharePoint 2019, I've been recently working into the dev platform on this one, just making sure that people are aware this is a preliminary plan. The preview will start pretty soon, and then the GA of SharePoint 2019 will happen later this year. I think we disclosed all of that in the SharePoint conference. In SharePoint 2019, the dev platform and the SharePoint framework will be 1.4 for third-party developers. It will support modern pages. You can stay in a classic as well. You don't have to move into the modern, but it will also have the modern team site, not a group-associated team site, a modern team site which doesn't have the Office 365 group because it's on-prem, and then also a communication site. It will support SharePoint Framework extensions. We talked about that one in SharePoint Conference. Webhooks should be available there. Asset packaging is there. So basically, if you have your JavaScript files inside of the SPFx file and you deploy them to the app catalog, they will be automatically hosted from the app catalog. So you don't have to explicitly enable any external CDN. But obviously, the Office 365 CDN option in the asset packaging isn't available because, again, we're in on-premises. Site collection app catalog. I have I should have actually updated that. So site collection app catalog is not supported. Tenant property is not supported. Column formatting will be supported in SharePoint 2019. So let me actually do this. I have a small issue on the slide. I was way too much, so let me actually do this. And those are not actually, because they are on the no side, if somebody can see the update on the slide. So the site designs will not be there, hub sites will not be there, site collection app catalog will not be there, tenant properties will not be there based on the current thinking. Like said, the preview starts relatively soon. And then we'll collect the feedback and figure out if there's any lane changes which are needed. And then at some point later this year, there will be a GA version of SharePoint 2019. So on Ace's comment related on anything which we could change from the no side to the other side. So the site collection app catalog and tenant properties especially was released like October 2017. Right now the tenant properties code has the dependencies on site subscription IDs, and site subscription IDs is something which is a SharePoint Online specific. So most likely that's not going to be changed by the RTM. It might, but it's might be unlikely. Obviously, whenever we start the preview process, please give us feedback using the feedback channels and say and define that these are really, really critical. We need to have certain things and all of that. And whenever we get the preview ongoing, there will be guidance and instructions how to get the input in. So we're able to then collect the input using a right channel. So that's following up on the ACE's second comment there. Site designs basically were released too late based on the timing of SharePoint 2019, and the hub sites were released too late from a timing perspective to be able to get them in on the SharePoint 2019. How did I do this? Sorry, I'm going to actually clean up now the page. How do I get rid of this? Because I messed it up. I did it. How do I clean up this page? I don't know. Well, that went well, because now I'm actually messing and confusing people because it's tenant properties, which is not, but asset packaging, this will be actually included in SharePoint 2019. That's highly confusing. How on earth do I actually get rid of those? That's weird. Well, it's Skype. No can do.
My mistakes were just verbal.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. Anyway. Thank you very much. Now, okay, moving on other things. Just a reminder on the SharePoint Starter Kit. We've been working on small updates on the SharePoint Starter Kit. We will be investing on the SharePoint Starter Kit more detailed on the following weeks as well. And this is an awesome demonstration of how to build and use modern experiences, how to have an end-to-end portal. Well, I wouldn't say portal, end-to-end modified communication site, which has then company-specific functionalities and customization. So there's quite a few web parts inside of it. It does require right now administrative knowledge. Well, it will require administrative permissions to the tenant in the future, but you need to understand PowerShell to be able to install this to your tenant. We are looking into, in a long-term side, by Ignite, we're looking into having a self-service website where you can go and sign in as a tenant administrator and click a button to actually provision the whole thing to your tenant automatically, and the latest version. And there will be then a different set of content packs, which will then provision different set of hierarchies and structures to your tenant as well. But that's by Ignite. So in the short term, we'll keep on improving the documentation. We've been getting a lot of contributions there, which is super helpful. For Eric Overfield, for example, submitted multiple PRs. There's other PRs pending, which we're still working on. There will be demos for each web parts. Technically, those are already recorded, but we will add additional documentation on all of them, and there will be changes on the web parts and extensions as well. So this is an open source end-to-end solution demonstrating these things. Key point to understand here is that you are able to reuse any of these assets any way you want. So if you're an ISV planning going to the modern experiences, you can just pull it down, you can reuse the code, you can use the code as a learning exercise in any way you want. If you're a customer, or if you're, let's say, business analyst and you want to demonstrate modern experiences for SharePoint Online, this is actually pretty easy setup, and then add a additional themes on top of it. By default, it's orange, which apparently is causing a lot of discussions. Orange is my favorite color, so I chose that to be orange, but you can flip the color to be any other color using the Office 365 theme as well. So it's a really, really easy way of flipping the colors. I don't understand what's wrong with orange, why people are actually saying that it's not a good thing. Now, that's it from my side, and I'll talk about the SharePoint 2019 experiences and dev story. I will clarify the slide and everything else on next Tuesday when we have the next monthly community call. So going through the user voice status and all of that. But at this point, Patrick, your turn.
Great. So we'll do quick updates through the rest of the Patterns and Practices client-side catalog here. Did want to, on PnP JS, our next release is July 6th, which is actually tomorrow. Excuse me, and if you're ever wondering when the next releases are going to be, we do try and keep the milestones updated in the GitHub project, so you can always check those to see when the next planned release is. Typically, those are going to be the first Friday of a given month. Unless, that falls on a holiday or something weird like that. Do remember the SP taxonomy library is out. Give that a try. Would love to hear feedback from folks on how that's going. We are seeing some usage, but would love to see more. Would love to get some feedback on make sure that's working for folks and how we can possibly expand that and improve it as needed. The libraries are published on CDN.js, so I want to remind folks of that. And did want to invite folks, if you have ideas on things we can do, places we can expand, do let us know where you think we could focus next. And the way to let us know is to go create an issue in the issues list on the GitHub issues list there, and that will let us track that and potentially ask you some questions if we have any for follow-up. But otherwise, please do let us know your ideas. And like I said, if you want to get involved earlier, I mentioned some ways to get involved in the Patterns and Practices. So specifically, I did want to mention we are looking for some folks who are interested in helping us update some existing samples or create new samples to replace those existing samples, as well as helping us a little bit on some of the documentation. So if you have some time and are interested in getting involved, that's a great place to start. It's a great place to start if you haven't worked with GitHub before or things like that. That's a great way to kind of get in, do your first pull request, do your first examination of things like the code and kind of get into that. How does it all work? So do let us know, and I would love the help on those topics. Quick reminder, I've been saying this now for a few months, the last version of SPFx JS is going to be published tomorrow, so please do stop using it, is the friendliest way I can say it. We've been saying this for many months now. It's time to migrate your existing projects. For any new projects, please start using the new @PnP scoped libraries. And again, as always, if you have issues transitioning, please do let us know. And I'll do a little wrap-up history of SPFx JS on the next SIG call, because I think that'll be interesting to look back on the work we've all done on that, and how it's been used and how it's grown over time, and ultimately how it became what it is today, which is the new PnP JS library. So I think it's an interesting story, and it's a story that all of you helped create with your feedback and with your contributions. And so I want to identify folks who helped and participated in that. So we'll have that on the next SIG, which I think will be a little interesting kind of walk down memory lane there. As always, pnp.github.io/pnpjs are the docs for PnPJS for all the different libraries. You can follow the hashtag PnPJS on Twitter, and as well you can follow me on Twitter @MediocreBowler. They could just be small mountains, Chris. They could just be very small mountains. But follow me on Twitter. I don't post a ton of stuff, so you won't get a lot of spam from me. It'll just mostly be updates about PnPJS, so a great thing to follow there. But any questions, of course, issues list. Love to hear the feedback from folks. Please keep that coming. And thanks to everybody that contributed this past 2 weeks, past month for the next release. So very much appreciate the work everyone's doing there. So thank you. So updates on Office 365 CLI. Is Waldek on the call?
Nope, he's none.
Nope. Okay, so new release 1.4.0. It's got support now for upgrading SharePoint Framework projects. So that was in the last beta, I believe I've got that right, and that is now part of an actual release. So you can update your existing SharePoint Framework projects between versions, which is a very cool feature, something Waldeck and Andrew, I know, have worked a lot on, and maybe some other folks. But very exciting. That's going to be very cool, and hopefully is going to allow folks to really sort of take their older SharePoint Framework projects, easily update them into the new versions of SharePoint Framework, and get access to all the latest bells and whistles, which is a very, very cool thing in the CLI. And of all the cool reasons to check it out, a really great reason to check out the Office 365 CLI there. Of course, now also checking in files, checking out files, support there, and then getting information about list items. That's all in the 1.4.0 release. Things that are in progress, supporting SPFx versions, supporting more versions for upgrades. So right now, we're not obviously supporting going from every version to every other version, but we'll be looking to support and expand what versions can be upgraded with the CLI. So that is in progress, as well as a cross-platform PnP starter kit setup script. So that would be an easy way for folks who can't or don't want to use PowerShell to set up the PnP starter kit using the CLI. And then, of course, more commands. And then, as always, what else? The question there is really asking you all in the community, what else would you like to see the Office 365 CLI do? Just provide your feedback, just like you would for the PnP JS libraries or the reusable controls. We love to hear that feedback, love to get the ideas on what we can do next. As always, you can install the latest version from NPM using the install-g for global at pnp/Office 365 CLI, and more information at that aka MSO365 CLI link. And then as well, off to the side, let me move my little Skype faces. Office 365 CLI on Twitter, gitter.im Office 365-CLI will get you the Gitter, I still don't know what to call Gitter chat channel, and then as well the docs, aka MS Office 365 CLI is that aka link I mentioned previously. But definitely, if you haven't checked out the Office 365 CLI, it's a very cool tool. It does quite a bit. And I do think the upgrading the SharePoint Framework projects is just another killer feature added to that. So do check that out if you haven't yet. Moving on to the reusable components. Open source controls, these started from work done by SharePoint engineering and expanded on that to create this set of open sourced reusable controls that you can use. There's two sets. So one into the property pane. So when you click edit, you have all the neat properties for your web part, and these controls help you really provide a very rich experience around editing those properties. So a color picker, a people picker, various things like that. So very cool. And then you've got those are all built to work very well in React, which is, I think, sort of becoming the de facto SharePoint Framework platform. Not to take sides, but with the Office 365 reusable UI fabric, with the React controls, and now the React reusable SPFx controls, things are starting to tilt that way a little bit. Not to discourage folks from using any other frameworks, but we do have a little bit more for you in the React space. The most used controls are the placeholder control and the web part title control, and those are obviously something you should check out, as well as the rest of the controls in the package. And then some upcoming work, we're feeding controls from the first-party engineering work, so we do have some stuff that has been done inside Microsoft Inside Engineering around supporting different types of controls, and we're going to be trying to port some of that into the open source world so folks, one, can see the source and learn from it, two, easily use them in their projects, and then understand how they work and possibly extend them or enhance them for the community. So trying to work that into the open source. And then as well, of course, always working on improvements with the existing controls. So, and again, that's a great place if you have feedback on improvements you'd like to see or even new controls you'd like to see us do. Welcome that feedback, and also welcome, of course, if you want to submit a pull request with those improvements or with entirely new controls, very much welcome that as well. 2 links down there at the bottom, the SharePoint GitHub IO SPFx property controls, and SPFx controls-react gets you the documentation for the property controls in the first link and the reusable content controls there in the second link. So do check those out. Again, these are fantastic for saving you some time and providing you what looks like a very out-of-the-box experience, because they are using the UI fabric styling, and it's going to just blend right into the rest of SharePoint and the rest of the work you're doing in your Office UI fabric styled web parts. So do check those out. Another valuable resource from the folks in PnP. So now, stepping into the demos, I think we did pretty well. We got half an hour left here. So Andrew, if you are ready and want to take over.
Thank you, Patrick. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
I can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, but I cannot see you. Oh, loading.
I can't hear you guys. You need to reboot. I can't hear you.
Okay, so
All
loading.
right, I've got your screen. You're all set. I'm going to mute
okay.
Mesa, so you're all set.
Nice. Hey guys, thank you for having me today. My name is Andrew Kaltikov. I'm a SharePoint developer at Arva Systems, Microsoft MVP in Office Service and Services category, and a member of PnP Core team. Also, I'm a huge fan of full-stack JavaScript development, and of course, by saying JavaScript, in most situations, I mean TypeScript. You can reach me in Twitter or GitHub, if you will. And today I'm going to talk about some options for SharePoint list items updates in system modes, aka SystemUpdate. Those who has been in SharePoint grounds for a while, and especially who came from on-premises, are familiar with the SystemUpdate from server-side object model. We're not touching SOM here, and even skipping CSOM.NET, as we're all about JavaScript next minutes. A few words about system update concept in general. System update provides a way of updating items metadata, skipping new versions creations, and keeping last modified by an authorship and not changing previously modified timestamps. The use cases for system update are different scenarios with data migration, mass update scripts, business processes, likewise approving your promotion or bonuses on behalf of the CEO. Just kidding. But this is the power of system update. The problem at hand is that client-side APIs have some limitations and, let's say, nuances in terms of today's topic. As mentioned before, system updates has been there for ages in SOM API. That's on-prem and not our case, of course. System update was introduced to CSOM.NET API around 2 years ago, and not far ago, but can't name the specific moment of time, system update had landed to JSOM library in SharePoint Online. Currently, in SPFx and serverless era, it's not fashionable anymore to use JSON and loading heavy SPGS and all this stuff. So we consider other options like raw JSON requests with crafted XML packages and REST as a default API when possible. Okay, so let's get our hands dirty with some code. Okay, so first of all, to overview the setup, here we have a site provisioned to SharePoint Online with a list with pre-populated guinea pigs items. All the items have been created using different accounts. All the items are at version 1.0. the versioning is enabled here with an option of creating only major versions, so it will be easier to track the changes. Each authorship for the items is different from my current user account. On the left-hand side, there is a Node.js project with a couple of different examples which we're going to execute shortly. The project is configured with some credentials, and I'm using a SAML user account here. Also, the project uses a couple of different libraries which allows authenticated requests to SharePoint. Please treat them as black boxes and such a level of abstraction for now. All the sources will be published to GitHub, and I'll share a link in Twitter. So first, and the simplest example. So it's a traditional JSON. Actually, nothing special here. We request for some guinea pigs items by names, and then for each item we'll update data field with some semi-static information. And after that, applying SystemUpdate for these items. And I'm using TypeScript typings with which a little bit out of the date. That's why SystemUpdate is called in such notation. Okay, let me start the process. It takes a couple of moments to spin up. Okay, so here, right after releasing the breakpoint, the items should be changed. And let's do it. Okay, refreshing the page. And here we can see that some of the items have been updated, and but the version and modified by and dates stayed the same. To be sure that this version is not a dummy text but an actual UI version, let's take a look at version history. We can see that there is only one version here. And next step, let's change a random item with some random data. And check that the version has been created. Okay, here it is. So modified by and modified has been changed, as well as version number. And by checking the version history, we can see a couple of versions here. Okay, that was JSON SystemUpdate. There is an alternative method for updating versions with keeping actual authorship and modified by. It's update overwrite version, which will be actually an interesting part of information when we go closer to REST API. JSON actually is good, but it requires SPJS libraries to be loaded, and sometimes we're in a context when limited with that. And there is another way of calling JSON API without actual loading for the libraries. And the second example exposes the approach. So let's run it first. Of course, a couple of moments. Okay, done. And check the results. You can see that the changes has been applied to, and let me elaborate what is the difference. No JSON library is used in this example, and actually it's PnP JS calls here, and let me go to the method. This method uses raw HTTP request to client SVC endpoint, and this ugly duckling actually is a JSON XML package, and it's hard to prepare these packages manually. And by the way, PnP JS has a helper library to construct such packages automatically. But never mind, it's this approach exposes great power using JSON without loading actual libraries. Okay, the other option, which is much sweeter to myself, is of course REST API. And there is no system update in REST, at least yet, but we can do something very close to what we need. And this example, which I'm executing right now, should update these items using nothing else but REST API. And let's check the results. Okay, we can see that the version numbers remained, as well as modified by and other information, but only data field has been changed. And let's explore how this has been done. There is such a method in REST API like validate update items, which do not create any version on update. But if this method is provided with the editor and modified field information with the previous values, which were before the call, it will be actually acting very similar to SystemUpdate, and authorship of the previous changes will be the same as it is. And permissions-wise, JSON SystemUpdate requires editor permissions, but you have to have full control over the items when doing the same using REST API, which is definitely a nuance, but we can live with that. And by the way, here I'm checking the permissions explicitly, because otherwise having write permissions but not managing permissions, the method will ignore this part of updating editor and modified, and actual data will be there, which is obviously not what we want when we are executing system update. Such scripts can be used in client-side tools for admins, for example, as SharePoint Framework, web parts, or can be consumed as Azure functions when a team prefer JS over .NET for some reasons. Not tired yet. I have a bonus, Microsoft Flow, and I have 3 flows to run pretty quick, as I feel that I'm running out of the time. So I changed the view to have different field here, and let me run a couple of flows. First one uses the out-the-box action for updating an item. The second one updates it using JSON API. And the last one updates the item using REST API. Let's explore the results of these flows. Updating this screen. Okay, so expectedly, the first one updated the modified authorship and incremented the version. And the second and the third acted as a system update. And let's explore these flows pretty quick. So the first one is default update item. Nothing interesting here. The second one is more interesting, is sending request using out-of-the-box HTTP request to SharePoint, and in this case, such package XML goes as a body, and with corresponding headers, the post request sent to the process query will do the thing. And of course, it's an ugly way, but it allows us to use any JSON operation actually. And let me switch to the final flow example. This one uses nothing else but REST, and such bodies are actually much easier to craft, and no hacks involved in this process. So the only things which we should care of is providing modified field and editor field with corresponding formats, and then the data which we are going to change, and call validate update items as well as any other REST API endpoint. And so this method allows us to execute update items like using SystemUpdate. And on this note, I'm done, and thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you, Andrew. Sorry for jumping here, Patrick. I have to say that create demo and validate update list item is super valuable. Absolutely.
Yeah, and by the way, this method works for SharePoint 2016. So you can create client-side solutions for old versions of SharePoint and apply system updates client-side.
Yeah, and that means that it's going to work in SharePoint 2019 as well, which is good. So
sure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Patrick, do you want to, or it doesn't? Frank, I think you're the next one.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
Okay, let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Starting. And I got it. Search page.
Yeah, search page. So, hello everyone. I'm Frank Cornu. I'm Office 365 and SharePoint developer at Ecos, and I'm based in Montreal, Canada. So, today I will show you the latest updates around the React Search Refiner SPFx sample. So, this is not a new sample. This is I've added new features to this sample, especially the templating feature, which I will show you right now, and dynamic data coming from the latest drop of the SPFx package. So just to begin, first of all, the main goal of these components, because in this sample you have two web parts, the search box and the search results. The main goal was to provide to users a way to customize, to build their own search experiences within their own site. Let's say you have a communication site and you want to customize the search experience. It's just like the old content search web part you had in SharePoint, in the classic SharePoint experience. So this is basically the same concept here. Because right now in the SharePoint modern experience, you have the high-latent content web part, which is not really flexible in terms of UI and query options. So that's why I created this component. So let's start with the search results. So as you can see, by the way, this is the placeholder Patrick mentioned earlier in this presentation, the PnP placeholder. So this is it. So this web part allows you to, the first mode is to set a static query. So let's say I want to search for Office 365. I put my keyword here, and I have the result just here. So I can set a multiple option in the query template. I can provide a result source by its GUID, enable the query rules, set the properties I want to retrieve within the query, and the refiners. So for the refiners, we have a panel here that you can add your refiners. So let's say I want to add my custom refiners coming from a managed metadata property. So it's a document type. I can just add here and PnP document type. And this is the right. Anyway, Okay, so you can just add, normally you can add this refiner here, and it will show in the panel. So you can also set the number of results. But the more important feature, I think, of this web part is the feature I've added a couple of days ago, is the templating feature. So I provided the multiple ways to display results. So I've created two predefined templates, so the list one and the tiles one, but with the ability also to customize the templates. So just to say, this feature is coming from the React content query web part that you can get on the SPFx repository, SPFx samples. So I just reuse the templating feature from this web part. Okay, so all credits goes to Simon Pierre, who built this amazing web part. So I will show you how I've integrated this templating feature. So with this ability, I can just edit on the fly the way the results are displayed. So let's say I want more tiles on the row. I just modify here. I can just add my own blah blah, and as you can see, I just have a control over the UI on the fly. So this template is saved into the web part property bag, but I can also provide an external template. So this is especially useful if you want to provide a normalized standard template within your company. You can provide an external template. So for instance, I have here a document library with an external template here. Just get the here. And I can provide my own template. So you have multiple scenarios that you can use to build your search experience. To create a template, I use the Handlebar engine. So Handlebar is a very light templating engine, JavaScript engine for templating. So there is no business logic here. It's more to focused on UI things. So as you can see, there is a special syntax with brackets. So you can use helpers. So this is, if you know Docker.js, it's really just like the bindings. It's really the same things. And you can get values from the context. So let's say you have control over each result, so you can create conditions and so on to build your display. So a real nice feature. So you have multiple options. You can show the paging as well. So from here you can build everything you want for the display. So this is for the static query. Then let's say you want to build a complete search experience. So you can add a search box, okay, and plug it to the search results. So for this feature, I use the new dynamic data feature. Before it was, I used the event aggregator, but I think it is deprecated now, so that's why I switched to the dynamic data. So as you can see, I see now the search box for the source, and I can get the input value from the search box. So it means that if I want to search for Office 365, my search box is plugged into the search result. Another cool feature I have added to the search box is the query suggestion. So let's say you want to provide suggestions to your users. You can just enable the suggestions, and then you have the suggestions. So those values are coming from the search configuration, the global search configuration. So for those who don't know, you can just add new values from the SharePoint Administration Center. So it's in French, but this is the same concept. So in the search setting, you can just add new suggestions. It takes approximately 24 hours to get your values. So you can import suggestions. Here you can import a text file with your suggestions. So this is a way to improve the search experience within the site. So this search bots support the suggestions. As you can see, you have also dynamic data here, and this is very particular because I've created this dynamic data configuration for one scenario. So let's say you have an home page with a search box, typically your intranet home page, and you want to redirect your query to another page with more components, with more options. I don't know what, but let's say you want to do this. So you can you have an option to send the query on another page. So here, for instance, the search page, and open in a new tab on a current tab. And here I can just grab the query from a query string parameter. So this data source is coming from an extension, not a web part. So with dynamic data, you can use web part, but extensions as well. So that's what I will show you now. So let's say I use the URL query string parameter, and here, save. SharePoint. And as you can see, the URL here, you have the queue parameter plugged to the query string parameter, and the search bar is plugged to the search result. So you have your result here. So this is for the demo. So behind the scene, I will show you the code behind this sample. So first of all, on the search result web part, there is a thing just to notice the way it renders. So the render is done asynchronously because of the external template. So you have a special property in the SPFx that is render async. And with this property, you can just tell the SPFx framework that the render is done asynchronously. So for instance, if I show you the render method, I get the template. So this is an async call, and then I call the render completed, and then the web part shows. So this is the first thing to notice. Another thing to notice, if you go to the sample, to the template. Let's say I take a template here. You can see those classes. This is the the Office UI Fabric CSS classes coming directly from the Office UI Fabric JS components. So I took the list item components, but to avoid conflicts with the Office UI Fabric React library, I just isolate the Office UI styles within a root class. So if you want to use this template, if you want to create some template, you have to use the template root, and then you can use all the component from Office UI Fabric styles. To not because otherwise you will have some conflicts with global styles. Okay. Then for the templating service, like I said, you can create your own helpers. Helpers are like just here. For instance, get count message is a helper, get summary, and so on. So you can create your own just by create here. So as you can see, you can pass in parameters your own values from the context. So let's say the current item and so on, and return processed value. So you can do anything you want here to build your templates. So that's it for the templating feature. For the search box now, so as you can see, the search box is a producer and a consumer. So it gets value from the query string parameter coming from an extension, but it sends also a value to the search result web part. So you can do both in SharePoint Framework. Another thing to notice is this line. This line is just to plug the correct data source when the page is refreshed, because let's say you refresh the page, at the time you want to get the value from the extension data source, it may be unavailable. So if you call the try get source, you will have an undefined value. So to avoid this issue, I just use the I just use the event handler here. This is an event handler just to catch when a new source is available on the page. And sorry, this is not well. And when a new source is available on the page, I just plug into the right property, the property pane property. And to do this, I use the component ID of the data source, because the data source ID changes every time you refresh the page, but the component ID still is the same when you refresh. So when I configure the data source within the property pane, I save the component ID in the property bag, and then I can just check all the data sources available and check for the specific component ID to just reconnect the data source to the property pane. So you have to be careful with extension, because it is always the time it will be unavailable at the time you want to get it in the onInit method. So this is pretty it for this demo. I think we're running out of time. So let me know if you have questions. The sample is available on the SPFx sample. So thank you.
Frank, there was a request that there is the results. If you click the results, are they working properly? If you click a result and then it opens up on the page, but you can say yes or no. And I don't know if that's I don't know. There was a comment on the IO window. So apparently there was an issue on the results, clicking the link, and it somehow wasn't properly opening. But all good. Okay. Great demo, and absolutely brilliant capability. Brilliant demo also on the dynamic data. So you're able to tie in the content. That really looks like an old classic search core results web part. So you kind of implemented the whole classic templating system and everything inside of it. So on behalf of the Microsoft engineering, I'm just cannot say that. Well, I can say thank you, Frank, for showing how to make that happen, and making customers actually also aware that you can do this. Our search story haven't been that complete yet for the modern experiences. Like there was some comments on the Ion window on that as well, but it is coming at some point. But I already put notes on myself that I will definitely share your demo to our search engineering so that they will know what you built. So great stuff. Patrick, anything what you want to add?
No, those were fantastic demos, really impressive. I'm always amazed to see what folks come up with out there in the community. So if you have demos, stuff you're working on, just let us know. We'd love to get you on a call, love to show off the great work you're doing. Really amazing stuff as always. Thanks to Frank, thanks to Andrew, thanks to Vesa, thanks to myself. Our next SPFx JS meeting is July 19th. That's in 2 weeks. And then next Thursday, July 12th, we have the General SharePoint Dev Special Interest Group. And so very much want to thank everybody for joining us here today. Learn, reuse, and share, aka MS-SP PnP, for all the SharePoint patterns and practices content. And look forward to talking to everybody soon. Thanks.
Bye-bye.